W2Fers, what the hell is going on? Long time no hear from Brian Stewart here. I'm joined by Matt on this show. We are going over the new rule changes, the resolutions, the NFL. They just went down to Arizona, all the coaches, the owners, probably the GMs, I'm not sure, and had that meeting that's annual where they vote on these rules. They talk about a litany of other things. And more than anything, you get that sweet picture of all the coaches sitting together. And I'll be honest, Matt, for the first time in a while, I went through that whole picture, and I actually had a hard time naming all the coaches. Like, there were a couple where I thought, are you, like a ghost that is just a placeholder in this photo? But after a while, eventually, without the help of any research, I was able to figure out who they all were. And none more important than Big Red Andy Reid in the middle. Have you seen the photo? And if you have, what stood out?
I haven't seen it, but I can already tell you Andy Reid's going to stand out. I'm sure he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He's going to get the thighs out. It's Andy, man. He always looks good in a photo. Maybe Belichick. What's he looking like? Is he wearing a hoodie?
They were side by side, actually, and it was tight. They really jammed them in there. I'm sure it's the most uncomfortable thing for those egos to go throughout the whole year. Andy had the headband with Patrick's hair coming out on top. I saw that. No, he didn't, but I'm sure he would have worn it if they would have had it on hand. Yeah, it was one of the best pictures I've seen, though. Just guys wearing things that, like, I guess fit their personality, but I'm surprised they went out on that limb. Belichick, he was pretty much par for the course, button up, rolled up sleeves. Apparently he doesn't even go to those every year, and so it was kind of a surprise to see him there. But I don't know, maybe that's him trying to get some dirt on Lamar, because I'm starting to wonder.
He's there to make some moves, that's for sure. You do a little GMing, a little head coaching at the same time. You mentioned you didn't recognize some guys. I'm assuming maybe that was probably the faceless coordinators from Philadelphia. I feel like they're the same guy, just split in half.
No, actually, no.
Really?
Maybe it's because it's so fresh. I recognized both of them as soon as I saw them. The one that took the longest was Dennis Allen. Because, for one, it's easy to forget that Dennis Allen is a head coach at all. But also, he always has the visor on. So when seeing him without a hat was like just threw a total knuckleball, and it took me roughly 24 hours to figure out who that was without looking it up myself. And I don't know. So you'll have to check it out. You'll have to check it out and see if you can do it yourself.
I will. I wouldn't kick yourself too hard. I'm assuming most Saints fans couldn't recognize that guy in a crowd, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Times are getting pretty tough for New Orleans. And, hell, while we're on the subject, I haven't got to listen to all the coaches talk and their interviews, but that's something I like to do. I like to pull up their interviews from these types of conferences, because every now and then you get a guy who's just super open and honest and insightful. And you said, the Saints there, it made me think of Sean Payton, because Sean Payton was one that I listened to, and I was very surprised at how openly he just took a steaming hot turd all over the prior regime of the Denver Broncos. And a couple truths to this for me. One, I don't think he said anything that was incorrect. He did a lot of finger pointing to the offense last year, the special teams, basically without coming out and saying it, he was telling the media, these coaches, this training staff, he kept talking about the injury problems, the strength staff, these guys did not know what they were doing, and now me and my crew does know. We've been doing this forever. We're going to get it fixed. That was the vibe, and if you don't believe me, you can look at it yourself, and any of our listeners can. And my takeaway from it was, okay, yeah, Sean, I think you're telling the truth, but you're telling a truth that maybe was best kept behind meeting doors. Maybe you didn't have to come out and bury these guys like you did, because for me, as somebody who watches closely and we talk about this stuff, like, you better win, and you better win now, because the way he made it sound was basically there were clowns running the organization, and if you just get some competency in the room, they had all the talent to win. Maybe we'll see, but pressure's on him now, and I don't know if they don't make the playoffs. I think it's going to look really bad, especially knowing him. This isn't the last time he's going to speak in these types of, arrogant ways.
Yeah, no, it sounds like old Sean Payton, he might be writing some checks with his mouth that his body can't cash. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's just think about it, Brian. This division is loaded up. We got Los Angeles Chargers, formerly known as San Diego. We got the Chiefs, of course, returning Super Bowl champions. We've got Jimmy Garoppolo. We haven't talked about this on this show. I saw a Vegas brothel offer Jimmy free sex for life. If you don't think that guy is going to be playing on top tier level, a guy like Jimmy, who is, he's a big proponent of sex work, and all the props to him for that. They're absolutely going to kill the Broncos. The Broncos are last again.
I don't know. I think that could go one of two ways. I think that could hurt Garoppolo, possibly, if he's just becomes an emphatic. I think that on the Chargers side, they're kind of like a dam that's just they keep putting, flex seal on this thing, and eventually it's just going to break, and Brandon Staley era is going to unravel. So we'll see what things look like by the time training camp rolls around. My main point that I'll stand firm on is, barring tragedy when it comes to injuries or health-related things, all those teams are just trying to get a wild card. Everybody knows it, and yeah, we'll see. I give Denver a shot, no doubt, but I think the pressure is being added by the mouth of Sean Payton.
Yeah, I think I just think history is going to repeat itself. I think he's a great coach, but he's got a lot to correct in that organization, starting at QB.
And low key, he kind of talked about Stidham, and it I don't know. I just kind of felt like he was saying, if Russell Wilson is just god awful again, we really think a lot of this Stidham kid, and I think he believes they can develop him into a winning quarterback. I don't know if that's, again, you got to listen to it, but it was pretty obvious that he really likes Stidham, and I don't know why you would prioritize signing him so much if you didn't think there's an off chance he's going to play. But we'll see. Okay, so big news, again, the rule changes. Let's just talk about a couple of the more popular ones that either got passed or didn't get passed. And game style, we're going to, say, hey, we agree with that, or no, we don't agree. And maybe even this is what we would have done instead, or would we have kept the rule what it was? We'll go through all those, starting with maybe the one more people are talking about than any other. Players can now wear the number 0, Matt. Punters can wear a jersey number between 0 and 49 and 90 and 99. But, so I'll give it to you. What are your initial thoughts on these number changes?
I mean, I don't really totally understand it. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if some big high-name players have been making a push, like Goodell. Ownership. I need to be number 0. I want to be the guy that blazes this trail. But I don't know. I don't get that personally. Maybe I'm a big speak it into existence kind of guy, and I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd want to put a nice 0 on my chest. And then, let's think you have one bonehead play. Let's say you have one bonehead game. Guess what? You're now a 0 in the eyes of many NFL fans.
Yeah, I would say it's one of these things, at least initially, while people are warming up to it, you need to be a dude to pull this off. You need to have maybe some credit built up and maybe not be the rookie coming in and placing extra, pressure, if you will, because you're taking on the number 0. And maybe others don't look at it that way. It is a swaggy looking number. I like how it shows on all these uniforms I've seen photoshopped, but time will tell. Probably not a huge deal. I'm more excited about the punter, to be honest. I want to see 98, 97 punting the football, because those types of numbers fit the mold of the punter. I truly believe that.
Feels a little collegey, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, in college, basically all the punters are wearing the high 90s. And granted, punting is just a totally different animal at that level. They don't approach it the same way at all. So we'll see if it's for long. Probably just a way for teams to give the lower numbers to their receivers and actual skill players more than they do
Yeah,
now.
I'm waiting for the day we can start giving centers and guards triple digits. That's what I'm waiting for.
Give it about 25, 30 years. I don't know. Depends if they stop retiring numbers and things like that. But we'll see.
Good point.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the next one involves referees being able to automatically review a fourth down that was a close call. So basically, the goal, I guess, trying to save coaches from having to use challenges, trying to speed up the game. And Matt, for me, this one, I'm definitely on. I'm going to hit the wait and see button. I think it's one of those rules where, depending on what side of the sideline you're on, one day you might really like it when they save your bacon and save you that challenge and fix the call. But on the other end, you get that. And I guess this play kind of stems from something like we saw with the Eagles and the 49ers and that catch that Devontae Smith didn't actually catch. I can't remember if that was a fourth down. I believe it was. Game-changing play. So all in all, I mean, anything that's going to help get the call right, I'm good with. I think if it will actually help make it the right call, go for it. And I think this is one where that's probably going to be the case. It's just we're probably going to have moments where we say, damn it, if the rule was like it used to be, we would have got away with it. Kind of Scooby-Doo, you know. If these
Mm-hmm.
damn owners hadn't passed that rule, we would have got away with it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It kind of brings in mind the AFC Championship game. I don't remember exactly what the play was. The Chiefs, they had to throw a challenge flag, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I don't know if it got overturned. But then, like, the very next, maybe it was the same series. I don't remember. And Mahomes, like, he gets a ball off, and they're like, the ref's like, no, we don't, the Bengals don't have to challenge it, right? And they just, like, called it dead because they said his knee was down. Right call, sure. But, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, depending what side you're on, you're like, well, we had to throw the challenge flag. Why don't they have to throw the challenge flag and take that risk? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, that is true, and that's I don't think this is going to be a rule that changes games very often, but the first time it does, we'll be talking about it, probably rethinking this very moment. And another one. So this is one that I skimmed over earlier, but I do think it's worth talking about. They have changed the rule where when it comes to standings tiebreakers, the first one, of course, is head to head. And previously, the second tiebreaker was conference record. But now the second tiebreaker has become strength of victory. So all of a sudden, it seems like the cross conference games are more important because if you're playing, used to an NFC AFC matchup was like not that important to standings at all. Now it sounds like you beat a team that has a good record across the conference or a bad record, and it could have a pretty big impact because it's all about strength of victory. You have to win and beat good teams based on this tiebreaker. I don't know about this one. What do you think, man?
That's interesting. I wonder, yeah, is that what they're trying to do? They're trying to create more of an importance for these interconference matchups. And here's another question I have for you, Brian. Based on the time of victory, is it based on the record at that point in time, or do we go back, wait till the end of the season, and then retroactively grade the strength of the victory? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's going to be based on end of the season, I believe, because that's how it usually is. I mean, and I honestly kind of hate it when I think about it
Yeah,
because
I
I
don't love that
just
either.
I've always said it's not who you play, it's when you play them. I didn't come up with that, of course, but I really believe that. Injuries and vibes. We saw the Titans last year; they were really tough early in the year, and then they lost like 7 in a row. And if you beat them early in the year, that's a great win. But if you beat them at the end, it was like a piece of cake. So we'll see. And I'm reading this off of CBS Sports right now. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but that's how it's coming through my mind, and I don't like it. This is the first one so far that I personally think I would have left alone.
Yeah, there feels like there's too much subjectivity in there, right? Like, yeah, like you said, different times of the years you're playing a totally different team. So yeah, I don't know if I love it. That's gonna create some funky issues, and some teams gonna get left out of the playoffs because of, like you said, one team was hot at the beginning of the season, and the other team wasn't at the end. It's gonna mess up a lot of things. There's gonna be some drama to it, though. I will say that.
Maybe this is stemming from the way the end of the year went with the Bills and Bengals and Chiefs. I don't know that, but I'm just again trying to remember why you would even go down this path. Possibly
Oh.
that's what it was, but still, I just think you're probably going to create more problems than you're going to fix. So the league, we'll see, we'll see. As with
Yeah,
all
that's
these.
interesting. You're probably right. That's probably what that is. Because if you go back and retroactively look at it, it probably would work out where the Bills were actually the number one seed or something like that.
Or even, yeah, I don't know that, or maybe the Bengals jump them because they were
Mm-hmm.
kind of. I mean, clearly they were a better team when it was all said and done. We'll see. Okay, approved resolutions. It looks like we have a couple. The first one was the whole Thursday night thing, where previously a team could only be scheduled to play one Thursday night football game on like the Amazon Prime package per year. So that doesn't include like the week one game because there's no rest period to deal with there. Doesn't include Thanksgiving. But just talking about the Amazon package, they can now schedule up to 2 games for a team. Still not flexible. So the schedule will lock in place, but you got to think, Matt, Bezos, he got a hold of Roger after last year, absolute disaster fuck, and said, we've got to fix this. Give me, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Philly, all these teams twice, and let's safeguard it, which will undoubtedly work for entertainment purposes. But what it will also do is possibly create some, competitive balance problems because a lot of teams view the Thursday night game as a disadvantage just in general, and it
Mm.
can cause injuries and all that. So where do you stand?
Yeah, great point. I do like the fact that we're going to have more interesting games for the most part. Because, yeah, I mean, think about last season. How many Thursday night games were we even hyped about? Maybe a handful at best. I feel like there definitely wasn't much. But here's another thing that we have to worry about here. What if, like you said, Bezos got in Goodell's ear and like, hey, man, what are we doing here? I paid a ton of cash and I got, just trash games left and right. What if, though, all they're going to keep getting is those classic AFC South matchups? We're just going to double down on those bad boys.
The whole problem is like every year, I just think the league, you can kind of, if you study the schedule hard, you can get an idea of they do a little bit of guessing, and they'll try to like pick the team that's gonna come out of nowhere and be a hot, primetime team that wasn't the previous year. And usually they don't guess like a fall off. They'll always bring back the usual suspects in the primetime slots. What I would like to see them do, maybe they already have this. I'm sure they have. I mean, the money's there. Is hire some like really good analysts to literally tell the schedule makers like, this is why we believe this team is ascending, and really provide whatever data they need to. This is why we think this team is descending. Provide that data. Hey, I'm not saying I'm qualified, but I would love to do the job. I think that you know yeah, somebody needs to. That's my point. I don't know that that's something they have right now, and that's why you end up with like last year, teams like the Rams eating up way too much space on prime time. Really, like the Raiders, I felt like they were overhyped from the start. They miss on those too often, I feel, and this will honestly protect them a little bit. But I think the winners are the fans who support teams that aren't any good because they may not even have a Thursday game now, which could be viewed as a competitive advantage. But I say that and I've heard other players say they love Thursday because it gives them like that mini bye week afterwards. So it's a perspective thing. Glass half full, glass half empty. What are you? Whichever one, you can probably find a way to agree or disagree with this change.
No, makes sense. And I like your idea, Brian. I think maybe you and I should put together a pitch. We'll put together some economic models. We'll get some Python, some R algorithms put together, and we'll make a pitch to Mr. Goodell. Worst to first, we're your guys, man. We're going to tell you, you know what? Maybe no Titans this season. Stuff like that.
Well, man, I think Ray Charles could figure out not to put the Titans in prime time this year, the way things are going. But your point is heard and respected.
1 for 1 is what you're saying.
Yes, you're 1 for 1. And if Roger will just subscribe, just like I hope all of our listeners right now will do, subscribe, unsubscribe, do it again, and put an earbud in W2F, they might be able to get a good plan together before the schedule drops here in a little over a month, right after the draft, I believe.
100%.
Well,
I like it.
So we went over that one with the Thursday nighters. Let's talk about the fact that you now have one cut day. So at the end of training camp, at the end of preseason, the 90-man roster, which you start camp with, is just basically going to be cut in half to 53, all in 1 day, 2 day. I mean, okay, yeah, it says 1 day. So in 1 day, they're going to have to inform, 37 players that they are being released. And I guess the excuse they're using is it's going to help fewer starters play in the preseason. Matt, you start with this one. I got to think on this for a second.
This is going to be wild. Very Wild West. I don't even know how a coach is going to be able, or a GM for that matter, let's say they split it up. How do you cut that many guys in 1 day? You're like cranking them out. It's a cut factory. But I will call this the Hard Knocks rule, Brian, because you know what's going to be exciting, that episode of Hard Knocks. I think what we need to do is not to put too much pressure on the HBO Max team. We got to be able to get this shot, edited in a day turnout. We need it out there. That way we don't have any spoilers. Yeah. Whatever team gets to do this, I don't know who it is. I'm sure they got their eye on someone that's going to be exciting. I want to see it all. All 37 cuts in 1 hour program. It's going to be nuts.
And that could hurt Hard Knocks, the other episodes, because we know lately it's just tough sometimes to get entertainment out of those training camp shows. The in-season ones have been better lately, and now you've condensed that drama to just 1 day. I wonder what they do to it all comes down to the people. You know, if you have somebody who's interesting, you can make it good. You can keep people's attention. And if you don't, Mike McCarthy, a couple of years ago, then shit out of luck. It's going to be a tough watch, and it doesn't really matter where the cuts come. But the preseason thing, it's going to make preseason games even more meaningless than they already are. I'm somebody who believes your starters need to play a little bit, and I think the coaches who feel that way are still going to do that, whether you do one cut day or not. Like, maybe it saves a few snaps in the third game, but that's about it. I don't know.
No, makes a lot of sense. I definitely hear your points.
Okay, we got a couple more. This got rejected. The proposal to make roughing the passer reviewable, not going to happen. And even though I know that the roughing the passer thing was a huge problem early last year, I thought as the year went on, they kind of figured it out. Didn't really seem to be happening a whole lot. So just keep it that way, because my whole deal is if they had passed this, it would have been like pass interference a couple years ago where they never use it. All they do is waste time looking at a play that they're not going to change. And so I was never behind this one, and I don't think we're going to ever see this rule come into effect. Just like PI will not come back. It's too subjective.
Yeah, no, you stole the words right out of my mouth. I was like, that's the whole reason they're not even entertaining it, right? Because that was such a flop. And I don't know if that's just the way the league organized it or handled it, or maybe the refs didn't want to go back on what they were doing. I don't know exactly what it was, but it totally failed. And we don't want to do that again. And I get that. I do. Yeah. I mean, it cost some teams some games early on, like you said. But in the end of things, I guess there probably weren't a lot of like real season long pivotal outcomes. So yeah, I get it.
Another one under the same umbrella: proposal to change onside kick attempts to a simple 4th and 20 conversion for an offense. So, Philadelphia Eagles, they proposed it. I guess they feel like, hey, the onside's just useless. Instead, let's send Jalen Hurts and our offense out there for a 4th and 20. Ironically, Matt, I think Philly is a team. I don't know. I guess you got A.J. Brown. Like, there's worse things you could do than just throwing it up to a guy like that, or even Devontae Smith. And as a Chiefs fan, offensive kind of heavy, I can see why this could have been a good thing for them. But I don't feel like the onside is like, I don't know. I never feel good about the onside when I'm the team that's receiving it. I feel like it's always hard. It's always nerve-wracking. And I don't know what the data says. I haven't done that research. But, okay, well, it's right in front of my face. It says onside kicks were recovered at an all-time low 4% in 2022. And they would like to see that jump to 13 to 14. Okay, yes, the data, I guess, says that something needs to change. But for me, I swear, each one of them, it just never feels easy. And I also don't know that it should be easy. I don't know that it needs to be 13 to 14%. Like, you have a whole game to make an onside kick obsolete. I don't want special teams counting more than it already does with kickers. I would rather this probably just stay the way it is, personally.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the whole reason it didn't become a thing, though, let's be real, the NFL is not at their point where they're like, we want to use what the XFL already started.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. That's the thing. I mean, would it be an exciting play? Absolutely. As a Kansas City fan, you'd like to have Mahomes at 4th and 20. You could probably convert a fair amount of those, honestly. But it all depends on the team. But high stress situation, like you said, so's the onside. And yeah, I mean, maybe they don't deserve the opportunity to have a 13, 14% chance of getting the ball back and getting back into the game for that matter. So I definitely hear where you're coming from. I don't think it's going to happen regardless of, even if it, like, entertainment value wise, I think it could be great, but it's not going to happen. They're not going to take a dang thing from the XFL unless, maybe they decide to do that like fumble recovery gets the ball thing. Maybe that.
So I break it down like this. I just hate rules that make one play really, really important. Like, I like it when the game feels like it was decided over the whole, at least, yes, I understand that most games come down to 5, 6 plays, but really, there's over 100 plays every game, offense, defense, and then special teams. To me, you make this rule change, there's a chance that you possibly have the biggest play of the game come down to a special teams decision to bring the offense back on the field. On the flip side, with like the overtime rule, I was in support of letting both teams get the ball because to me that spreads the importance of plays out. It's not just about did I make the stop on that one particular defensive drive. I know deep down my offense is also going to get an opportunity to have their impact on the game and vice versa. So that's where I come from on this stuff. I want as many players to have a say in that final outcome as I can. And, when you have to onside, you are basically putting importance on everything that happened before that moment to a higher degree.
Yeah, no, you make a great argument. There's really not much I can say other than they just wanted to have the most electric play regardless of however the rest of the game was played. Sure. I think another reason why they were like, we can't do that, because think about it. They want to protect their officials. They want to protect the league's image for officiating, because think about it. There's no doubt going to be a controversial call, pass interference, holding, what have you.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to change the total dynamic of the game, right? So they don't want that. They definitely don't want that, because especially like, with the NFL getting more and more involved with DraftKings, Bet Online, et cetera, be a bad look.
That's the first I've heard that point, and that might be the best. Really, is it could turn into like the Hail Mary at the end of the game where the defense is committing penalties, but they're challenging the refs to call it because of the situation they're in. And odds are they won't. Odds are they will kind of like tuck the whistles in a little bit and swallow them per se. Yeah, let's just try to avoid that altogether, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt, let's close the show real quick. Lamar Jackson yesterday, while John Harbaugh was about to speak at the league meeting, tweets that he had requested a trade back on March 2nd. And
Mm-hmm.
we won't spend a ton of time on it because every podcast and NFL show has already exhausted this. But what are you thinking right now about Lamar and his stance? Were you surprised by this? Do you think it was a good call? And of course, as always, who needs to be taking him up on this offer and trying to make the trade or the sign and trade happen?
Yeah, no, I think the thing that you're going to hear differently on this podcast you haven't heard anywhere else. I haven't heard many other podcasts talking. Lamar doesn't want to be in Baltimore. I think that's what has come down to this whole time. I don't think it really comes down to guaranteed money, contract, anything like that. He just doesn't want to be in Bmore anymore. And you know what? I've never been to the city. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But that's exactly what it is. I think he wanted to go home, but he wanted to be kind of, I don't know, what's neutral about it and not come out like, hey, look, guys, it's not you, it's me. I want out of here. I think he may have waited a little too late. It's kind of taken a lot of options off the table. I'm sure somebody's going to emerge at some point. But, yeah, man, I think that's exactly what happened in that regard.
Couple things. I'm going to continue to beat the drum that I don't know how they make it work financially. I'm not going to take the time to try to figure it out because I don't care that much. But Miami, you've already pushed the chips in so far ever since last year. You've traded all your big picks away. You've spent the money. You've hired respected coaches like Fangio. Keep going and just do this, man. Yeah, it's going to hurt Tua's feelings. Yeah, he's going to have to figure things out. But like I said, maybe we find out that Tua's not ready to play. Maybe his concussion deal is extending. And if so, it's a perfect excuse. But even if not, it's an excuse to move on and say, hey, Tua, I'm sorry, man, but we got a championship roster here, and we cannot put the franchise on your back when we can't trust you to be there and not just be there, but be there for a long time. Because if he gets another concussion, that could be a season-ending thing next year. So they need to do it and try to be the next Rams who buy their Super Bowl. Lamar would love it. We know that. That's my thought on that. But also, I think from the Ravens side, this is like every fan's worst nightmare where you get an MVP level quarterback and you fail to retain him because for whatever reason you have not satisfied his needs, whether it was financially or like the Texans. I mean, that's kind of a unique situation, but people forget before Deshaun Watson was exposed for being a predator, he wanted off of the Houston Texans. He was basically saying that they were not meeting his needs to win, right? Because that's what he was used to in Clemson. And I can even remember like after 2018 and the Chiefs, and they had that god-awful defense. And there were people who were afraid like, oh, if they don't ever get this defense better, Mahomes is going to want to leave because he needs to win and go somewhere with a bigger brand or a bigger market. Like valid concerns. At the time, they were unprecedented. But now we have two sources with Deshaun Watson, now Lamar Jackson, of these elite, or at least in Lamar's case, you could say MVP level guys who are wanting out. And if you're a Ravens fan, it's like, how do you Russell Wilson? I almost forgot him. It's just crazy, man. It really is.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. You make some good points on what makes sense for where Lamar could land. I've had some couple thoughts of my own. I don't know if that looks like the same thing for New York Jets. What are we doing? We waiting for Aaron Rodgers thing to fall through? Because if that doesn't happen for you, you're up a creek. You're the same thing as the Dolphins. You've got a heck of a team. Probably not quite to the Dolphins level, but a heck of a team, but no quarterback. You're not going anywhere. So facts are facts in regards to that. I was also talking to a colleague who keeps his ear very close to the ground. He has sources within the league. And he threw out a wild idea to me. What about the Dallas Cowboys? We saw Jerry. He's no longer. He got rid of Zeke, man, and I never thought I would see the day.
Yeah.
So why be loyal to Dak? Let's send him to Baltimore. Maybe give a pickup or two. I don't know. Can you imagine Lamar down there in Big D? Wow.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Not yet, at least. We'll get Pork back on the show, see what he's thinking. I'm sure he's pumped. Dallas is one of the NFC favorites right now and will continue to be, but that's an interesting one. The last one I would throw in, because they have been linked somewhat, is Indy, and that's because they're kind of in no man's land in the draft. They're not going to get their pick of the litter more than likely, or at least not even the second pick, unless they make a big trade. If you're going to give up big premium assets and you have a bunch of cap space like the Colts do, why not just go get the proven guy who can get this thing going quick? Because their GM, he needs to win. He needs to get this thing on track to keep his job. And so I'm sure the owner would be okay with it. But that being said, he's going to, like all owners, they're going to draw their lines with the contract part. We'll see. If I had to guess today, I'd say he stays in Baltimore. I don't know. I just think it's like, I think the team might make it hard, and they may just say, look, we're keeping you another year. Like, we don't have a better option type of situation. But if not, it's hard. I want to say Miami. I don't know how they make it work. The picks aren't there right now. It would have to be after the draft.
Yeah, now that Baltimore situation, that would be entertaining because it'd be, I don't know how you mend that relationship at this point. And yeah, like you said, Miami would probably be the most exciting. You mentioned earlier in this program before, you got the Falcons, you got the Patriots maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of landing spots I feel like they could emerge at some point. We'll see,
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Matt, that is a wrap on this show. It's been a fun one, like they all are. And if you've made it with us this far, we appreciate your time. Make sure you keep your ear down to the ground. We got new guests coming up. The next one going to be Corey Nicholson. Corey Nicholson, a Bears fan, a Chicago Bears fan. So we're excited to get him on for the first time and see what he's thinking about what has been an eventful offseason. And it's far from done because we know that they are going to be busy on draft weekend here in about a month. Matt, if you don't got any extra words.
I don't think I do. Just take care, dear listener. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the flippity flip.
See you.